Hello. Welcome to my cake kitchen. I'm Gladys, and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating. Where are you on the camera? You're a little... What are we doing today? I'm not going to waste your time. Can I make an admission? I'm a little bit unorganized, but we're going to get into it. We are actually getting into piping, frosting, or buttercream piping techniques of, buttercream for piping or frosting onto a cake. Essentially, that is what we're going to be doing. I had considered that because we have already undertaken buttercream, the subject of buttercream, and there are variations of buttercreams and different sorts that I have already made, I could just jump into talking about the techniques in piping. But I also wanted this to be a learning resource. So we're going to take it all the way back, and I'm going to talk about a buttercream option I am going to be making in this video. So essentially, we're going to be making buttercream for piping or buttercream for covering and piping onto a cake. Piping details on a cake is very specific because it's a sort of style of decorative technique that is used on a cake. You can opt for different ways to decorate your cake, and piping doesn't have to be one of them. But this is actually for, is it Lollipop? Lollipop, a subscriber and a friend of the channel, who on one of our live videos suggested that she would like to learn how to pipe onto a cake. I am hoping this video is not going to be long-winded and longer than you need it to be. But in the chat, I have my dear Delaney and Tharpiter and Delaney. I'm here for a bit. 2-hour delays that day for school. I don't leave for another. Delaney, good morning, darling. Good morning. Yeah, when I log in at 1 or 2 p.m., I know UK time, I know the Americans are just starting. So Delaney, great to have you. Always a pleasure. If you can assist moderating the chat for us, that will be amazing. But what we are specifically doing is going to be deriving a buttercream, and the intention for the buttercream is going to be for covering and piping specifically onto a cake. We're talking beginner friendly type of piping. So hopefully when we derive the buttercream, tomorrow will be our chance to undertake some of the covering and the piping onto a cake. And then on day 3, we will see all of that become something else, as in into a cake. So day 1, we make the buttercream. Day 2, we talk through some of the piping tips and the options you have, and then identify beginner friendly ways to use a couple of them, preferably stick to one. And then day 3, we will use those to cover a cake. So hopefully if you chance onto this video, it will be a sort of learning style for you. So whilst I said I could have easily just started into talking about the piping and the piping details, there's a lot to cover on here. The reason for deriving the buttercream is that there are different sorts of buttercreams that can be used. And when it comes to piping, you don't even have to settle with just buttercream. There is also royal icing and the different variations of it that can be derived for the piping decorative style on cakes. So we are going to go with just American buttercream. And American buttercream, I have chosen this specifically because it's an entry-level type of buttercream. It is easy to derive, and if you're just starting cake making and you're not so sure about your options of buttercream, this is easy, accessible. The ingredients are easy to obtain, and I'm actually going to be doing it from scratch. So true to my word that this is going to be a learning resource, I sincerely hope that this will be useful to you. That said, I must also admit that whilst I am a very experienced cake maker, decorator, cake artist, piping is not my strongest point. So you are in good company, because I'm going to give you like practical tips on how I get around and the choices you can make to cover some of the issues and insecurities that you may feel about piping. And then again, the reassurance is that if you're not good at piping, you can consider different options to bring decoration onto your cake without having to undertake piping at all. So that said, in my hand I have butter here. We have salted and unsalted butter. Have we spoken about the subject of butter in baking? I don't think so. I think one of these days I will probably undertake the subjects of ingredients in baking and decorating, and also talking through that to help you. That said, the salted and unsalted butter is for good reason. The American buttercream I am going to be deriving is, you will see the measurement anyway, but the reason why I am using salted butter and unsalted butter is simply because salted butter sort of helps settle and cancel out a bit of the sugar in American buttercream. I have covered the subject of American buttercream in greater detail in previous videos that are still long form or in live videos already. So if you want to check that out, that would be amazing. But for this, first of all, let me just put my kettle on. And for this, a block of butter here is 250 grams. I don't know the equivalence of that in sticks for my dear Americans, so I am not so sure. That said, this will be about 500 grams of butter here. Now, the recommended type of butter that is required for making buttercream or baking would be room temperature. Now, this is room temperature is about anything between 18 degrees C and 20 degrees C, I think, somewhere around 18 to 22, somewhere in between there. But as you can see, this is very hard butter here. This will not be great for buttercream at all, right? You will have difficulties. So life happens, even though the general recommendation and guidance is for you to have room temperature butter, which is a little softer than you need. A block is a pound, 464. Okay, a block is a pound, which is 464. Well, in England we use grams, so a block here, the block of butter I have here weighs 250 grams. Maybe take away about 5 grams for packaging and you have 245 grams. So we have at least about 490 to about 500 grams of butter here, excluding packaging. That said, room temperature butter doesn't seem to work all the time, depending on where you are and influencing weather conditions. So I cut to the chase, and in real time, if say I forgot to take my butter out, I will put it in a microwave. Cutting it into pieces allows the butter to warm up quicker when I am putting it in the microwave to derive the right consistency. So I'm going to do that. The problem here is that I'm not going to be able to talk you through the microwave settings. The simple reason is microwaves differ depending on settings, and my new one, the other one I had broke, the new one I have here has a defrost setting. So I'm going to set this butter in on defrost setting for 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and have a look at it. In the meantime, if you see me scanning around, I'm trying to think about where my scale is, because I'll need a scale to measure some sugar. But let's put this in the microwave quickly and I'll come back and talk to you. So let's count 2 minutes from here. If you're going to do what I am doing by putting your butter in the microwave, great opportunity there, but keep an eye on it. Better stick to my own advice here so I can keep a really close eye on it. That said, for any baker, probably a scale will do you good. Okay, I know there are different forms of measurements, but a scale, maybe if I got myself a better one that works and not flip out, that would be better, but that's not what I have here. So let's see. That's a scale, and for 500 grams of sugar over there, you know what, I'm getting anxious about my butter. Let's see what it is in there. Let's have a look. Okay, I was literally melting the whole. Okay, so it is still hard. I think I'm gonna have to put it in on low instead, because as you can see, the bottom part of the butter is melting, and we're gonna put that back in here. and set it on low, because defrost is medium low and we actually need this to be on low. Okay, that said, if you're in the chat or you've just joined us here, do consider liking the video, just so that it can communicate to YouTube that you have received some helpful information. That is, if you find what we are doing here helpful. Okay, that said, I have a sieve here. Why do we need a sieve? We're going to be measuring some icing sugar, right? And the icing sugar, I've spoken about the type of icing sugar you need, and like I said, I've covered this in greater detail in other videos that you will still find on the channel. I'll be linking some of that more in the video here. Delaney, thank you. When you are here with us, you make my life so easy. I sincerely appreciate it. I think yesterday I was thinking about you in the evening. I was doing something and I thought, where is Delaney at? There you go. So we'll come to the butter in a minute. I'll leave it to still on low. So I guess when it comes to the butter, you keep your eye on your butter and make sure. But I will tell you what to look out for the right consistency of butter. Okay? The sugar here is a bit more than I needed. So I'm gonna there's 375 grams of sugar here, and there is 500 grams of butter, which makes it not exactly a 1-to-1 ratio or a 2-to-1 ratio. I'll talk you through the ratios in a moment. The 1-to-1 ratio in buttercream making is when you have equal parts of sugar to equal parts of butter. So for instance, I have 500 grams of butter here. If I settled for same amount of sugar here, but here I have decided to go for less sugar, which is about 125 grams less than the butter, just so that there's a better buttery mouthfeel and the buttercream is not overwhelmingly sweet. Plus, to cancel and balance out some of the sweetness of the sugar, I have opted for salted butter as part of my butter here. When you come to sourcing out different sorts of buttercream, different people will recommend different things, which works. One is not better than the other. Over here, I always recommend that have an understanding for the intention for the chosen ingredients, and that will lead you to the outcomes. Because if I hadn't talked to you through my intention and why I'm doing what I'm doing, you may not have a fuller understanding. And I think that also ties into a video I made yesterday in shorts form, saying how technique in everything you do, especially in baking, matters. Now that said, occasionally I've seen bakers try to skip the part of sifting the sugar, and I have actually skipped that aspect. Look, this is all crumbs. Look, can you tell? And this, if you don't sift your sugar, will end up in the buttercream, and it will make your buttercream lumpy. Look at all these lumps of sugar on my worktop. So when you are going to make buttercream, to guarantee a smooth textured buttercream that spreads finely, ensure you take the extra step to sift your sugar through a sieve. It will get rid of the debris and lumpy parts of the sugar and also guarantee you a smoother finish. Small thing to do, but better rewards in the end for you. Let me wipe my worktop and then we'll get the mixer in and we'll get to making the buttercream. Bear in mind, if you're just joining us in the chat, we're making buttercream, but not just any buttercream. The buttercream we're deriving could be used for frosting cupcakes, covering cakes, but we're deriving it specifically so it would be used for piping details onto a cake. That noted, we'll be continuing this as a series, a decoration series for any beginner wishing to undertake the making of a specific buttercream, in which case we're making American buttercream, and use that American buttercream to pipe decorative details on a cake. Lollipop, this is answering your specific question, which is that you want to learn to type. So if you chance back onto this video, I hope you find some value in that. With that said, let me just go wipe my worktop, get the mixer in, and we can move on to the next thing. But before that, I'll be talking to you about the butter and butter consistency, which is super helpful for deriving the type of buttercream we need here. Right, before we start with the buttercream, I'm going to move that back and then we will talk a bit about the butter. Bear in mind, I have already said I have derived a video like this where I've talked about the butter and everything you need. I'm just giving you the highlights here, but I'll be linking the other lives where I talked about the butter and every detail in the description box when I come to optimizing it, just so that you can stay on top of it. This, if you're not looking to make buttercream or do not care to understand buttercream details, this is very long and boring and dragged out, but it's very informative by intention, just so that it is a learning resource for you to sit through, take notes, so that you can understand how to make buttercream from start to finish, especially for the ones that I actually spent a long time talking through all the various ingredients that you need to derive the best buttercream here. So if I sound very fast-paced about this, it is because the information is already available, but I've just decided to repeat it here just so that this ties into being able to get the right buttercream you need for the task ahead of us. Because I don't seem to use a lot of American buttercream. I use it specifically for other things, but I have also encountered some difficulties with the variations and the ingredient ratios. So it's probably a good thing to kind of let you know. That said, Tony, Tony, thank you. Yeah, if you're not a baker, this is boring. It's like going to class. I know. So go find something fun to do, darling. Okay, go find something fun to do. We are boring here because we teach. It's a learning class for making buttercream. So yeah, that's fine. Go do something fun with yourself, okay? And come back. We're not a gossip channel. We don't do anything. We make cakes. And yes, there are days that I'm excited. And there are days I have to serve the people who matter and who actually want to learn something. So I won't bore you. Goodbye and good day. Have fun. And we'll catch you later. Okay? That said, the butter here, actually, instead of let me use a spatula. The butter you want to use for your buttercream, you would hear that you need room temperature butter. And yes, room temperature butter is key. But this is... no. Tony, you are a trouble merchant, okay? You're joking. Okay, darling. I'm so pleased you're joking, but whatever it is, we're not mad. We encourage you to express yourself. But that said, let's move on to the butter. You'll find that in most buttercream recipes, the encouragement is recommended that you use room temperature butter, and that is fine. Room temperature butter is what is recommended. I like to go a little over the room temperature because room temperature is affected by a few things. Room temperature scientifically has notes, which is anything between 18 to 22. So if I had a thermometer here, if I set it at room temperature and checked, perhaps that's the recommended butter consistency that I will need. But that tends to be a little stiff. There is you know what, I've covered this so much in other videos, so you want to check that out, because then at room temperature you can press your thumb into the butter firmly. It can leave a dent, but you can pick some of the butter on your finger, and that is okay. I like to go a little bit above that, so it's a little soft. I would use a thermometer, but I don't have it to hand right now. I don't know where I left it. But more than using a thermometer, which can be something that is daunting for any beginner, I like to encourage what you should be observing and feeling for your butter, because then that will remain standard for you wherever you are in the world and whether your conditions are changing environmentally. because if we're just using the thermometer in a place where it is super sunny, that 5 minutes of the butter coming out of the fridge, it's going to melt. You leave the baker on edge, and if we're at a cold temperature, then the baker has to find ways to mitigate the issues of the butter not melting quick enough. But whatever you're doing, I just like to encourage you to have control over your options so you can derive better results from that. With that said, we have the butter, which looks like butter that will spread easily on your bread, and I have done that in short series where I describe the consistency of butter that you need, that if your butter can spread easily over a slice of bread without cracking the texture and grain of the bread, and the bread remains intact without too much pressure, that is the consistency of butter you need. And for that, this is what we need here. If I press my finger into it, there is bits of butter on my finger, but the dent is still there, and the butter is soft and spreadable. I'm wondering how I can you see how easily it spreads in the bowl? Now, at this point of softness, you want to be careful, because at this point you're literally pushing over the edge of melting. And the difference between soft butter that you need and the melting is when you have an oily film on top. That is melted butter, and that will not hold for your buttercream. So be very wary of that. That said, I'm gonna just put that in here. What am I looking for? Yeah, I am looking for a spatula. And we're not making a cake today. We're making buttercream that we are going to be using to pipe onto a cake. My hands are a little bit slippery, so I'm transferring all the butter here. We have 500 grams of butter here, remember? Now, when I start using the mixer, it is probably going to be loud. So if you hear I am very quiet, I'll give you all the information and instructions, and I'll let the mixer do its work. I should say, for the quantity here that we are using, you're better off using a stand mixer. I have my Kenwood K mix here. Any form of stand mixer should be able to do the job. If you don't have a stand mixer, could you use a hand mixer? Yes, I have done that in the past. I have made buttercream using a hand mixer. I will tell you though, it is a little hard to do. It takes a lot of time, especially for this quantity. I think when I did it, I tried 250 grams of butter, and it was fine to start with. Anything above, especially for my hand mixer, and just in case you don't know that a hand mixer is this one, and you have 2 of these going in. So this is a hand mixer, but I'm not going to be using a hand mixer because I want the convenience and I don't want the trouble of doing this more than I need. So can you use a hand mixer? Yes. Is it going to be hard? Yes. Are the time difference technique going to be slightly different? Probably so, yes. So for best result, probably follow the technique and be encouraged to use a stand mixer if you have one. If you can't invest in this, I will say it's not an expensive, but it depends. I'll give you context. I picked this mixer for £199 on a Black Friday sale, is it? Because you've seen me on here. I had one like this that broke on a video that I was making, and I've spoken a lot about it also on my TikTok if you check that out. So if you don't have a stand mixer, right, consider investing in one, especially if you're a baker. And I have also derived some very comprehensive reviews on this one and an alternative beginner style one, Okma. So try that and check those videos out for yourself, and you will see that yeah, having a stand mixer is a good thing. That said, I'm going to start the... Thank you, Tony. Thank you. I'm going to start this by going to use the whisk. Now, you'll find that most bakers would recommend the use of... Let me come to it. Where is it? Will recommend the use of the K-Mix. One is not better than the other. intention for using the tool matters, right? This is what you call a balloon whisk. Any stand mixer will have a balloon whisk like this in some form, right? Whether it is big and ballooning out, because for my two mixers, I have two balloon whisks. This is for a bigger mixer, and then the K mix is for this. So any type of stand mixer you pick up will have a balloon whisk, a paddle attachment called the K beater for the Kenwood, and also a hook, a dough hook. Obviously, I'm not a bread baker and I don't use my dough hook, but you'll find that if you're a baker and you picked up a stand mixer, you're going to need these two attachments here. Now, for most buttercream recipes that you will find, especially for American buttercream, you will find that the recommendation is to start with a paddle attachment. The paddle attachment, the first part of the creaming process, is to beat air into your batter to separate it, which means it absorbs the sugar better. That's the technical intention for the creaming method. Now, you can beat the air by using a K beater, which will smoothly kind of cream around the bowl, spreading the butter across and remixing it to stretch it out, expand it, and change the color. It takes time, okay? I think the difference for me is about 5 minutes. I don't have 5 minutes to spare. So I tend to start the process by using a balloon whisk, which, because of this part of the balloon whisk, beats air quickly into the batter for me, changes the color, expands it, adds more air, which means it can take and absorb the sugar. But it is important to know why I am using the balloon whisk, which is why I've spent time explaining that to you. But by using this attachment here, I will create a problem that should be solved later. Because when you use this attachment here, it is going to whip too much air quickly. And the air, if not taken care of, will create air pockets and lead to a less smooth buttercream for you. So I will show you how to fix that problem in the course of the process. But if you want to make this buttercream, you can use a balloon whisk and you can use a paddle attachment. One is not better than the other. For convenience and for my own technique and comfort, I am used to starting off with this. We're going to beat the butter for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes, no more. And what we're looking for is the butter to pale out from the yellow to a pale mid sort of cream looking color. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then we're going to go into it. Okay, and on this mixer, the whipping is going to be about medium high, which is about 3 to 4. Most mixer settings have different settings. Just medium high speed is going to be all right. Okay, that's where I am starting. It will help if I had this plugged in, isn't it? Well, let's make sure. Did I say medium high speed? No, actually we're going to go for the full speed. Point of correction, we are going for the full speed, which is maximum speed over here. Okay, if you have questions for me, I will answer them. Tabitha, I will answer your question. I'm just catching up on the chat because I had Delaney helping out. I haven't been able to follow the chat. So let me just have a quick look in the chat and then I will answer some of your questions when I come to it. Okay, but we're going to let this be for 5 minutes. it 5 minutes yet? Okay. This is where we are at. This is the the consistency of butter we are looking for. Right? So it's important to know that because we didn't melt our butter too much, our butter, even though we've whipped so much air into it, is still looking firm and steady. And that is really what you want. That said, I'm going to ask a few questions. Tapita, thank you for all of you for your love and support. Tapita was asking how I'm going to show you how to teach flowers. Actually, Tapita, sorry to disappoint you. I don't know how to do the flowers perfectly, so I'll be skipping that, because flowers are a sort of advanced technique for most people, but I'm actually just looking to teach simple piping techniques. So the idea is to derive the buttercream that is going to be used for the piping, and then tomorrow we'll take the lessons on simple piping techniques using this buttercream, because what I want this video to be is a sort of learning resource. So if you land on it, you can know what buttercream you are making. That is if you're a complete novice, and then you can up the ante on that, and you can up the ante by learning to make the buttercream and then using it. And then what is left of it, we can then use it to pipe onto a cake. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be like a 3-day class where we make the buttercream, then we talk through your piping tips, because some people don't understand the different piping tips and the different options on how to use them. We'll talk about that. And then we'll start some small piping techniques on, say, how to derive piping if you're a complete beginner who knows nothing. And I'll be handing you my own simple tips on how and the choices I make about piping. That will be for tomorrow, and then the day after we can come back and use the techniques that we learned from tomorrow's one to decorate a cake and see what results we get out of it. So that's the intention for this week. It also gives me some sort of goals to achieve so that I can be on the live. I hope that kind of makes sense. Caroline. Oh, okay. You guys are talking about something really serious over there. Okay. Yes, but you know what? I don't know if I should say this out loud. You don't have to learn to pipe. You don't. There are various ways. There are different aspects of cake decorating that you can master. I say I'm not great at piping, but then I think I'm only saying that because I'm comparing my skills to the very advanced techniques of other cakes that I know how to make well. Do you know what I mean? So that said, can I pipe onto a cake and still make it look professional? Yes. But I think when it comes to piping, I am very limited because it's not my forte, and I know that's something I have to work at. Plus, I think aesthetically, there is something that is very less pleasing about piped cakes for me. Okay, when I look at those cakes, like the Lambert style cakes, they are pretty, but it's too busy for me, and that's not my style. I like the Russian piping tips on a cupcake when they look so pretty. They're simple flowers. Do you see what I'm saying here? So if you're a novice, am I talking about I'm not good as in I'm still a novice style piping artist? No. Do I want to improve? Maybe. Do I care? I don't know. Okay, that said, oh, you guys are having important conversations there. So 5 minutes, we've managed to get our batter consistency right. What I am going to do is I've just dumped the sugar in here, and I'm going to try and mix the butter into the sugar like I'm doing now. The simple reason is, if I did anything outside of what I'm doing here, I'm going to have a burst of sugar in my face, and that will not be very good. Okay? So, is Delaney still here with us, my love? Oh, she's gone. Tapita, how are you? we haven't caught up properly. I think today, because we're doing a sort of class and it's not like a fun based kind of thing. It's not fun at all. But for most of you in the chat, I am happy you can talk to each other. Okay, I am just happy you guys can interact with each other and catch up with each other. So I am so happy for that. Okay, that said, I've mixed that in a little bit, and what we are going to do is cream this, and I'm going to start slow just so that the sugar can all get mixed in. And whilst we're at it, it's probably good time to add the vanilla too. Okay, now before we go on about the vanilla, intention and objective matters. If you're looking to derive a white, sort of clean looking pale buttercream, you probably don't want dark vanilla in there because it's going to discolor it for you. So you want to probably go for something else, if you know what I mean. But I don't mind the color, so I am going to be using dark vanilla. But you can use the clear extract for yourself, and that should be okay. Yes, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we are going to turn this up. You'll find, for those of you in the chat, Caroline, it's okay. Over here, I try to encourage the spirits of community so you can talk to each other. So I'm okay with you guys talking to each other as long as we are all respectful of each other. And it seems like all of you are having fun over there. So I sincerely appreciate all of you for being here with me today. And whether you're a baker or not, you're welcome to the community. Respect each other, make room and space for each other. And I hope you're having a great time whilst I am banging on about a cake. Chicago is single digits cold. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry for you. It could be too. It could be minus minus 0, is it? And that's 2 digits. Okay, it will be all right. I am so sorry. I hope the weather is better. I live in England. The weather is never so warm as my African spirit would like it, but I know it can't be as cold as some parts of the US over there. So I appreciate you guys for being here, and I hope you find some joy in the cakes we are making over here. Tony wants to try. You want to try my cake, but you're in, is it Algeria, Tony? Is that you? where are you joining us from? I missed part of the chat. But whilst we're talking and talking and talking, well, whilst I am talking and talking, let's not forget that when you're creaming the butter with the sugar, it's going to try and go everywhere, right? As you can see, it's going everywhere. So you're going to have to make room and scrape your bowl in occasionally to keep everything in there. You should also remember that making the buttercream is hugely affected by weather conditions. For instance, if this was a scorching 28-degree day, something Caroline is wishing for, I won't have the time and patience to be talking to you because it's hot. The butter will be melting and the structure of the buttercream won't be firm. But on a cold day like this, even though I started with sort of melted butter that was a little firmer than butter that is completely broken, you can still see it is firm in here. So all of that matters. Keep an eye on the consistency of your butter, and this is going to go back in for another 5 minutes, but you want to give your mixer motor room to breathe. So it's not like you leave it running and running, it will break. Okay, so even at the 5 minutes mark, give it 3 minutes, come back, stop it, stir your bowl in, and then let the 2 minutes go so that you have breaks in between. That is just a note of caution to you. Now, I think a very important thing you would notice here is that even though I whipped my butter with a balloon whisk here, the creaming of the sugar is done with the paddle attachment. And the simple reason for doing that is because I did not want to whip air vigorously into the buttercream. So the intention here is that the butter changes consistency, you add the sugar, you cream it together, and because of the air and the change in appearance of the butter and the air that has been whipped into it to help change the form and also increase volume, the sugar goes in and then it mixes well. So the idea of using the paddle attachment is to use that to evenly keep creaming and mixing so that it all comes together. And that is the essence of buttercream. So by so doing, what I am doing is that I am essentially trying to reduce the air bubbles that forms, because it's air bubbles that ends up causing your buttercream to be not so smooth. But that said, there are certain buttercreams like American buttercream which is naturally not as smooth as some other forms of buttercream, so bear that in mind. And the simple reason is that American buttercream is a mixture of butter and sugar, which means the sugar with its granular grains ends up leaving particles on your buttercream which is what you feel as the buttercream not being too smooth. It is because of the presence of the sugar particles or grains, however you call it. With that said, oh, Thelma is back. So that said, look, I have covered buttercream. I like to treat every new video I start as a new resource, so that if you're just coming into it, you don't feel like you have to go and source other resources. But I also think I have spoken about this a lot. And the only reason, like I said, that I am doing this is just so that it's in the same place for when we come to using it to derive the buttercream piped decorations on our cake. That said, if you look into my bowl, you can see that the buttercream doesn't look too smooth at all and hasn't come together. Now, at this point, can you do something different? The buttercream still remains very hard, as in difficult to spread. And that is because the butter is looking a bit firm because of the weather conditions. So what can you do differently? At this point, you can slow the mixer down and let it cream for another 5 minutes. And essentially, that's the buttercream done. So it's exactly 2:52. We'll give this another 5 minutes, and then that will be it. What can you do different about your buttercream? Buttercream consistency is determined by the objective for which you're deriving the buttercream. So for instance, buttercream for filling into cakes will differ from buttercream that is used for piping onto cakes. And the reason is that when you're piping onto a cake, you want the buttercream detail to hold form. So you want a firmer type of buttercream. I mean, over here, I have derived the 1-to-1 ratio, which is a little less stable and softer than the ratio of sugar to butter I have used here. Because what you're doing is you want to make sure that when you pipe the buttercream, it will hold, and it has body and can hold the form and the shape that you're trying to pipe. So the consistency of buttercream that you derive is really important. And for this, I'm not trying to go for a hard pressed buttercream, but I'm also not going for a too softly textured buttercream, because soft texture, I don't get what I need, because it's very flimsy, doesn't hold form. Too hard, it's going to be hard to push out for flexibility. So those are things you want to consider when you are making buttercream. The reason being, for making this type of buttercream, this is exactly what I will be using to deriving the buttercream piping details that we will be covering in our next video, which is tomorrow, and of course the day after. Thank you, Caroline. Caroline, thank you. I really appreciate it. I try to, because I get the same questions over and over again, and there are so many video resources from other creators on the platform, and sometimes I kind of ask myself, why is this? Why? And the simple reason is that to get your attention, I have to play by the rules sometimes. If I was deriving a long form video, I probably wouldn't be this informative, but then again, it depends, right? So the lives are just more like, okay, let's come and dig into the subject and see what we can make out of it. So I appreciate you can find some value in that. Thelma, welcome back. How are you, and how is life after Christmas? We were all looking forward to Christmas, and boy, hasn't Christmas come and gone so quickly. How are we feeling about that? Okay? And for my dear American friends, you guys have a new president. How do you feel, people? Are you feeling excited? You know what? I don't know anything about politics, and I try to not talk about the thing I don't know about. Let's stick with cakes. But I saw a photo of Trump yesterday, and I was like, oh, Mr. Trump. Now look at me going. My pastor watches me, okay, pastor? If you ever see me, look, I was just, look, forget Trump and his politics a minute, okay? When I say, "Ooh, Mr. Trump," it's nothing to do with the politics. But he was in a tux. I think it was for the ball. It's a photo that is online that you will find just for the fun of it. You'll find online some of the press photos, and there is a photo of a musician who had the wings. I don't know. I know nothing about these people and what they do, but for the inaugural ball, there was a performance, and Trump was dancing. Okay. So yeah, there was the inaugural ball, and there is a shot of Trump dancing, and the angle of shot just makes him look like you wouldn't think he's closer to 80. Okay, he just had swag, and I was like, "Oh, Mr. Trump, I see why Melania." Well, America will carry on, as they say in England. I know, Caroline. But God, I saw the photo and I was like, "Ooh, Mr. Trump." Anyway, let's just move on from Mr. Trump, okay? Me and my crashing on your president. Let's stick to cake making. That is where I can excel, okay? That said, our buttercream, the creaming of the buttercream to rid of air bubbles is something you can continue if you want. Okay, yeah, this is 3 minutes in. We have another 2 to go. The vanilla cuts through. There's balance in the salt and sugar. Lovely cake. Did I say lovely cake? There's no cake here. I'm dreaming it. Buttercream. And it feels like a very sweet vanilla ice cream. Not in mouthfeel though, but in taste. And if you notice, so answering some of the questions that will normally come with this, the reason why I still have a buttery mouthfeel to this is because I used less sugar to butter. There's 125 grams more butter than sugar here. So it gives me a better mouthfeel in terms of the butter. And that's a tip you can use for buttercream. I'm just going to let this go. Caroline, is this your first time being here? Some days I'm like, I'm on the ball and I know people in the chat, and some days I'm like, oh, is that a new person? And I always want you to feel welcome anyway, which is why I ask. Oh, so Caroline, you just chanced onto the platform, onto the channel. Well, I appreciate you for being here, and I hope you find some value here. Right, we have perhaps another 2 minutes to go. And at this point, if you wanted to add color, you can add color to your buttercream, right? Because it's just so, the color is a bit dark here. I am just going to add some white food coloring into it. Thank you, Thank you, Caroline. You make me feel better about myself, isn't it? Thank you. Right. So I have some food coloring, just white, ingenious edible icing frostener here, whitener. So I'm just adding a little bit. Some people will encourage you to add what do you call purple before the white. It makes no difference at all. Why am I paling it? Just for a better color for me, that's all. Do you need it? No. And actually you'll find that over here I don't like coloring my buttercream at all because it interferes with the mouthfeel. But this product is derived in a way where it doesn't interfere with your mouthfeel at all. So yes, it's not sponsored, it's actually just a product I love and just would recommend if I have to. Okay, that said, what does our buttercream look like? Let's have a look. It's all done, as you can see. I kind of feel like leaving it to set and then coming back yesterday kind of takes away from what we need to do. Is that me? You know what I'm going to do? Let this mix and I'll show you one thing. Let me just dip out of the chat. Caroline, please do me a favor. Keep the company of the chat group and I'll be back shortly. I'm picking up a cake. So our buttercream is done. I think it just occurred to me that if we left the buttercream, came back tomorrow to kind of use it, the question will be, how do we know that it can guarantee us the results, as in a smoothly derived buttercream that is great for piping onto a cake, right? So what I'm trying to do, instead of piping, we're going to use this buttercream to cover this cake, and what will be left of it, I will talk you through how we can use it to pipe tomorrow. So tomorrow I'll talk you through the piping details and everything else that is required. Then we are going to pipe decorative elements on this cake. I hope that kind of makes sense. And if you're not up for it, please let me know in the chat, because sometimes I want to break the sessions for you, but other times I'm thinking, can we get great results from that? I don't know. So, because I also sometimes do not want the videos to be longer than it is necessary. So maybe you should vote on it. Let's see where we're headed with this one, because my head is kind of like, I'm thinking about you as I'm trying to give you value, and I'm also trying to think about any beginner, because if they derive the buttercream and they want to use it straight away, how do we guarantee best results? How? You know, anyway, the buttercream is done here. With the color in, it has paled out a little bit for us, isn't it? Right? Remember, I didn't add any additional ingredients here. Okay, so you know what? Even if it's one person who is voting, I am happy to, because even if it's one singular person who is getting value out of this video, I am happy to assist. Okay, so Caroline is Tabitha is voting for let's frost the cake and see what the result is. Okay, challenge accepted. But you know what? Right. Okay. this is the consistency of buttercream we have. All right, this is the consistency. And if you're wondering what I'm doing, I am trying to kind of press any excess air bubbles up. Okay. Now this is when you know that I haven't actually prepped for this part, but hey, we're moving. Okay, if I skip through some of the covering aspect, understand that I've covered this in various videos already. Okay, so hopefully this is not new to you at all, but my sort of immediate last videos, ganashing a cake and all of that, will hand you tips on how to cover a cake anyway, so do check those videos out for yourself. Okay, so here's the buttercream we derived. As you can see, there's nothing on here but a chocolate cake. Would it have been better to have a plain cake? Yes. But does the chocolate cake present a challenge? Yes. Because if it is a smooth looking cake, we shouldn't have any chocolate through. Does that make sense? And if you do see chocolate come through, that is because of the crumb coat. So let's go for it. Can you see? I am probably taking the professional route here, which is lobbing a lot of buttercream on here, so I don't have to do more than I need, right? And that is also because I hadn't prepped for this to happen. But I can hear all of you. You know who told me that? A customer picked up a cake on Saturday and said they want to see me on a British baking show. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to play the TV game, but hey, any producer chances onto this and gives me a shout and the money is good and it doesn't involve selling my morals, then yes. But yeah, that said, I have yeah, I don't know, let me not ruin it for myself. Okay. That said, look at what we have here. So now we're going to scrape that clean. Talk about not prepping for something, eh? Okay, we have a scraper here. Right. And then we go back in. If you can see it smoothing out already, tell me. I don't like American buttercream because it is super sweet, but I also prefer it for its simplicity, especially for beginners. There we have it. So if a cake is not smooth, what you're seeing is these air pockets. So we're going to go back in and fill this over. Now bear in mind, if you see brown bits coming through, that is just the chocolate coming through. And that is because I skipped a whole crumb coat session here. The intention here is to keep the cake polished in a way where we can see the consistency of buttercream doing its work. I'm not so concerned about the cake looking too clean, but it will probably make sense if I did. Okay, let's spread this out a lot even and go back in here. Who in the chat is a baker, or beside, I know Tabitha bakes and Thelma bakes, but who in the chat like is a baker and can cover a cake up until this point? I'm just curious to know who. Right. Okay. Okay. We made it. Okay. Okay. So what are we aiming for? We are aiming to see how cleanly this buttercream will cover our cake. And that is what we are aiming for. Okay. Okay. I think the top part needs a bit more buttercream. Oh, okay. Caroline makes Caribbean pudding baker. I don't know what that is. Am I naive? I don't know what Caribbean pudding is. Clearly with Caribbean in it, it's going to be good. But I have no idea. Caroline, can you explain that for me, please? Right. Okay. Right. So I think for practice sessions, somebody said you can use potato or something, for potato mash or something, to practice how to decorate a cake. But I don't think the experience will be the same, only because you need to also know how the buttercream feels. I don't know. If you're a beginner, what are the practicing techniques you have actually used in piping for a cake? Right? If you're a complete novice, never baked a cake, and you're trying to decorate a cake, if you can decorate a cake to this point and cover it like this, that's a win. Okay? Just a little bit of encouragement there for you. Right? So we made the buttercream, and even though we are going to be using it to pipe, we wanted to see how smooth it can cover a cake. If you're in the chat, do you think we are getting to the goal? Especially considering we haven't followed the rules diligently. Which pudding is more? Caroline, you were just new to the channel. Now I believe you when you say you just chanced onto the channel. Because if you've been here before, you know I like sticky toffee pudding. Okay? It is my go-to pudding of choice. I like sticky toffee pudding. Okay, let's see. Okay, people, we are getting to the end of our goal. Okay, right? Have a look at our cake and let's vote. Do you think if you had a cake that was this smoothly covered, you will be all right with it, or you will feel like it needs more work? It's okay, Tapita. Tapita, don't worry at all. You didn't miss much anyway. We were just talking about the buttercream and the results that we are aiming for, and whether you think our buttercream cake is smooth enough. See? What do you think? This is American buttercream. 500 grams of sugar. Great, Tapita. Awesome. So, that's the buttercream. What do you think? Is it smooth? Let's vote. Do you think this cake is smooth? Considering it, we haven't taken it back to the fridge. We haven't done anything. We made the buttercream and we've used it to cover the cake. What do you think? Let's vote. Hi, Mima. Okay, Caroline. Are you sure you're not biased? Are you sure you're not just trying to make me feel better about myself? Okay, right. So this is what we have. So at least we know that even though the buttercream is for piping, it does a good job of covering a cake. And this is my most, as in just minimal skill here. Literally. Chantilly. Hi, darling. How are you, Katie? It's great to have you. Right. So our buttercream is done. We can cover a cake on it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to scrape it all back, and then we're going to use it to pipe onto cakes and cupcakes and pipe some piping details with. I don't know. Should I do that, or should I? Look at me. Okay. We have 500 grams of butter, which is 250 grams of salted butter, 250 grams of unsalted butter. I'm answering Telma's question. Telma wants to know the ingredients. We have 500 grams of butter in total, but there's 250 grams of salted butter and 250 grams of unsalted butter. Melted to a soft spreadable consistency. I've spoken about that in detail on the video. I melted it right here. Put it in the microwave at defrost to come up to a spreadable consistency. Whipped it for 5 minutes using the balloon whisk. Added the sugar. The sugar is 375 grams. So there's more butter than sugar. And the salted butter is to balance taste. I've spoken about all of that in the video prior. So perhaps when the live finishes, you'll have to sit through. But maybe watch it at speed 2.0 so that it fast forwards the information for you. But you can yes, so we've done it now. I think for the piping, even though I want to undertake the piping for us to talk through all of it, there are different aspects of the piping. So what I'll come back is tomorrow we'll talk about the piping options. If you're a beginner, what you can do to help yourself so that you can get best results, especially if you're piping with a cake, or you're going to pipe on a cake. I have already mentioned I am not great at piping. I have shaky hands, and piping just requires a lot of faff that I don't particularly care for. So you're in good company. I'll be handing you my own personal techniques that will help you derive the best out of piping cakes. But otherwise, I think My goal was just to make the buttercream so we can move on to something else tomorrow. But I'm so pleased you guys challenged me to be able to cover the cake. Now you can see the buttercream recipe is great. It covers the cake smoothly. And if you're a beginner who is able to achieve a result like this, I hope that will give you some confidence to achieve some great results. So same buttercream, it's covered the cake. We'll be back tomorrow to pipe with this buttercream. Hopefully that is of some use to you.